Before we begin, you can let your body settle into the place where you are resting. If you are sitting, you can let your shoulders drop a little. If you are lying down, you can let the surface under you carry more of your weight. There is nowhere to go right now. There is only a small, ordinary object to think about, and it can move at a slow pace. Tonight the object is soap. It is the kind of thing that waits quietly near water. It stays near a sink, or a shower, or a bath edge. It sits in a dish or in a bottle, and it does not ask for much attention. It is there, then it is used, then it is set back down. You can picture a simple scene. A sink. A tap. A place to set something down. Hands get wet. Soap is picked up or dispensed. Hands rub together for a moment. Then a rinse, and the return of the object to its place. Nothing complicated. Just a familiar loop. Soap is also an object that changes slowly. A bar softens when it stays wet. A bar gets harder when it sits unused for a long time. A bottle gathers a dull film near its base. A pump nozzle can dry and crust a little. These are quiet outcomes of being close to water and being used in small repeats. Now we can move on. Chapter 1:1 Working Definition, in plain use. Soap is a consumer cleaning product made mainly from cleaning ingredients that help lift soils and let them rinse away. In everyday life, it is rarely described by its ingredients. It is described by what it does in the moment. It is the thing you reach for when hands feel used, or when skin needs washing, or when a surface needs a quick clean and rinse. Soap is usually kept within arm's reach of water. It lives in the wet zone. That wet zone might be a bathroom sink, a kitchen sink, a shower caddy, a soap dish, or the edge of a bath. Soap is placed there because its use begins with water. Hands get wet, then soap is picked up or dispensed, then hands rub together, then everything gets rinsed. The object is designed to fit inside that small loop. One calm way to think about the cleaning part is that soap helps water spread and grab onto soils. A small amount of soap helps water work on things that plain water does not lift as easily. This is not always the same across every formula, and it can vary with the kind of water in the home, but the daily goal stays the same. Spread, lift, and rinse. In a home, soap often appears in two main forms, a bar or a liquid. A bar is a solid piece shaped to hold in the hand. A liquid is a soap that can pour or pump. People recognize these forms quickly. The bar needs a place to dry. The liquid needs a container, a cap, or a pump. People also have a strong sense of what clean feels like. Clean can feel like a quick rinse that leaves hands free of greasiness. Clean can feel like slip during washing, then a smooth rinse. Clean can feel like a squeaky finish, or a softer finish that feels comfortable. The feel is not always the same. Some soaps rinse with less residue. Some leave a film that some people like and others do not. Soap is stored near water even though water changes it. Water can soften bars and make them mushy if they sit in standing water. Water can also dry at a nozzle and form a crust. Even a simple bar can crack if it dries unevenly, and this may vary with the bar and with the room. Soap also has a quiet lifespan. A bar can last from about a week to about a couple months, depending on how big it is, how often it is used, and how much water it sits in between uses. A liquid bottle can also be used up over a few weeks, and refills can last longer in storage. These time spans are not always the same, and they change with household routines. In daily life, soap includes more than the cleaning base. The object includes the packaging, the dosing, and the placement. A dish, a rack, a pump, and a refill under the sink are all part of what soap is like to live with. Soap is simple in use: wet, lather, rinse, and put it back where it can dry. Now we can move on. Chapter 2 names people use, and what they mean. Soap is one object, but the name changes with the place and the habit. Near a sink it is often called hand soap. In a shower it may be called body soap or bath soap. A bar might be called bar soap, or simply soap, because the bar is the classic form many people picture first. The cleaning function is similar, but the expected scent, feel, and container can change with the room. Some names point to a specific area of use. Facial soap, sometimes called a face bar, is a name people use when they want a soap that feels suited to the face. It may be a separate bar, or it may be the same bar used for both face and body, and this is not always the same from home to home. Body wash is another common name. It is usually a liquid cleanser marketed for bathing. Even though it comes in a bottle and is squeezed or poured, many people still think of it as soap in everyday speech. Water, soap, rubbing, and rinsing, that basic routine still applies. Some terms are quieter and more technical, but they can hint at practical behavior. A Sindit bar is a soap-like bar made with synthetic cleaning ingredients rather than true soap salts. In daily use, one practical point is hard water. Hard water can reduce lather and can increase film for true soap. A Sindit bar tends to form less scum in hard water. This may vary by formula. Glycerin soap is a name people use when they want a certain feel, often smoother glide and sometimes a clearer bar. Glycerin is a humect, meaning it attracts water. In a humid bathroom, a glycerin-rich bar can sometimes develop small droplets on the surface, as if it is sweating. This is not always the same in every room. Castile-style soap is a naming tradition that points to a certain oil profile and a simple ingredient story. In daily life, the user may notice it can lather differently, and in hard water it may lather less. The feel can vary by person and by formula. Names can also point to the package and the way the soap is delivered. Some soaps come in a standard pump bottle. Some use a foaming pump that mixes air and soap to make foam. Some come in refill pouches meant to fill a bottle again. Some are concentrates meant to be mixed at home, and this depends on the instructions and is not always the same. Some travel soaps come as thin sheets that dissolve, and those sheets must stay dry so they do not clump in humid storage. Some labels use words about mildness, moisturizing feel, scent, refills, or concentrates. Some labels use words about antibacterial effects, but the meaning of those labels can vary by region and by category, and this is not always the same. The name of soap usually points to where it is used and how it is dispensed. Now we can move on. Chapter 3: Where soap lives in a home. Soap lives close to water, and that basic fact shapes almost everything about it. At a bathroom sink, soap often sits on the sink edge, on a small dish, or in a bottle near the tap. The placement is usually chosen for reach. A hand can move from water to soap without opening a cupboard. A bar often sits in a soap dish. The dish might be flat, or it might have ridges or holes, or it might be a rack that lifts the bar slightly. The quiet job of the dish is drainage. If the bar can drain and dry, it stays firmer and lasts longer. If the bar sits in pooled water, it can become soft and mushy, and it can leave more residue behind. This may vary with the bar and the bathroom conditions, but the pattern is common. Liquid soap tends to sit in a bottle near the faucet, often with a pump. Over time, the base of the bottle can collect a ring of residue, especially if water splashes and then dries. That ring can be wiped away, or it can become part of the normal look of the sink area. Some people keep a small tray under the bottle, and the tray becomes the thing that gets rinsed. Soap also lives in the shower or bath area. A bar may sit on a shower ledge. It may sit in a caddy. It may sit in a dish on the bath edge. Bottles may sit on the floor of the shower, or on a shelf, or upside down so they are easier to use. These positions are chosen by habit and by the shape of the space, and this is not always the same in every home. Soap can also live at a utility or laundry sink. A utility bar used for stain pre-treating might be stored nearby. This area can be dusty, and a bar can pick up lint if it is left wet on a shelf. The soap still does its job, but the surroundings are different from a bathroom. There is also the hidden soap. Under sink storage can hold refills, extra bottles, and spare bars. A refill pouch might stand upright to avoid slow leaks. A bottle might wait until the main bottle is empty. In some homes, there is a small backstock habit, so running out is less likely. In other homes, soap runs out and a different soap moves in, and the object migrates from room to room. Travel adds another location. A small bar might be stored in a tin or a container. A small bottle might sit in a travel kit. A common problem is that soap is stored damp, especially after a quick wash. The dampness shortens the life of a bar and can make it soft. Soap sheets can clump when they pick up moisture. The details can vary, but the need to keep travel soap dry is a quiet constant. Soap lives close to water, and the storage spot quietly decides how it behaves. Now we can move on. Chapter for a short timeline, without excitement. The history of soap is mostly a history of repeatability and routine. Long ago, people used early alkaline cleaning mixtures made from ash and fat. The exact dates and places are not always the same, and they need verification, but the practical idea is simple. If ash and fat were available, they could be combined in a way that helped cleaning. Over time, written records included soap-like recipes, instructions for combining fats with alkaline salts. The details of the earliest records can vary and need verification, but the presence of written recipes matters. It means the craft became something that could be described, repeated, and passed along. Soap making spread as a trade in parts of Europe and the Mediterranean. Production became organized in towns, in response to urban demand for textile washing and personal washing. Soap also became a routine industrial input for cloth production, because dependable scouring was needed. As the craft developed, different sources of alkali were used. Plant ash was common, and later more refined alkalis became available. The mundane reason is consistency. A more consistent alkali makes batches more reliable, and the result is a more predictable product. The distinction between hard soap and soft soap became common. Sodium-based hard soaps and potassium-based soft soaps were recognized as different forms suited to different tasks. This is not always the same in every place, but the idea of matching the soap form to the task became part of routine life. In the 18th and 19th century, industrial alkali production methods increased the availability of soda ash and other alkali inputs. Specific process dates need verification, but the reason is clear: cost reduction and supply stability. As inputs became easier to obtain, soap could be made more consistently. As the chemistry of fats and soap became clearer, the reaction that turns fats and alkali into soap could be managed more predictably. Key names and dates need verification, but the practical outcome was improved formulation and quality control. Instead of relying only on feel and tradition, producers could aim for predictable hardness, predictable scent, and predictable wear. Mechanization then changed the shape and uniformity of soap. Steps like milling, extrusion, and stamping became common, helping bars become more uniform. Branding and wrapped retail bars also became standard, improving shelf storage and reducing handling. Soap became something you could pick up from a shelf in a consistent form. Later, synthetic detergents entered mainstream cleaning. They offered better performance in hard water and more options in formulation. Liquid hand soaps also became common as pumps and plastics enabled easy dosing. The reasons were convenience, hygiene perceptions, and reduced bar mess. These shifts were gradual, and the details can vary. Soap changed gradually, mostly to make it more consistent, affordable, and easy to store. Now we can move on. Chapter 5: The feel of soap in the hand. A bar of soap is handled with wet hands, so its feel matters. Weight and grip become noticeable when fingers are slippery. A larger bar can last longer, but it can be harder to hold. A smaller bar can be easier to grip, but it can run out faster and become a sliver sooner. This may vary, because different hands and different sinks create different preferences. Shape matters in a quiet way. Some bars are oval. Some are rectangular. Some have curves. A rectangle can stack and store well. A curved bar can feel easier to hold. Sharp corners can chip, and corners can collect residue on a dish. Rounded edges can reduce chipping and can feel smoother against skin. Surface texture can be smooth or it can have ridges. Texture can help grip, but it can also trap film and require more rinsing of the bar and the holder. A very smooth bar can slide easily. A bar with more texture can feel steadier in the hand, but it can carry more residue in its grooves. This is not always the same, because water and use patterns change what stays on the surface. Slipperiness can go in two directions. If a bar is very smooth, it can be dropped more easily. If a bar is very hard and dry, it can feel grippy on wet skin, and it may lather more slowly at first. As it becomes wet, it can soften slightly at the surface. A bar left unused for months can become harder as water slowly evaporates, and this is not always the same in every bathroom. Liquid soap changes the routine into a different set of hand motions. There is a dispensing step, pumping or pouring, and then a spreading step. With a pump bottle, the dose per stroke becomes part of the habit. Some people use one pump. Some use two. The number becomes a small fixed choice that repeats. A foaming pump changes the feel again. It often uses a thinner formula and the dose can feel lighter in the hand. A liquid can be thick or thin. Thickness affects whether it drips and whether it clings to the nozzle. A thick liquid can reduce drips but may clog more if it dries at the tip. A thin liquid pumps easily but can run off hands and waste product if the dose is too large. This may vary by formula and by pump design, and it can also shift with temperature. When people say a soap rinse is clean, they may mean it does not leave much residue or film. Or they may mean it leaves a comfortable feel with less tightness. People also notice lather, even though lather level is not a direct measure of cleaning power. Lather can signal that the routine is working, and it can shape how long people keep rubbing before they rinse. Most soap preferences are really preferences about handling, lather, and rinsing. Now we can move on. Chapter 6: Daily Routines at the Sink. Sink soap is used in short loops. Hands get wet, soap is picked up or dispensed, hands rub, then everything is rinsed. The object is returned to its place. This can happen many times a day, often without thought. A morning bathroom hand wash is usually quick. A little water, a little lather, then a rinse. The bar goes back to the dish, or the pump bottle goes back near the faucet. The common end state is a damp bar on a dish or a bottle with a few water spots on it. It is not a problem, it is just the normal look of a used object. Kitchen hand washing while cooking can be even shorter and more frequent. Hands may be washed in quick bursts between tasks. The bottle may sit near the sink edge, and splashes can create a ring of residue under the base. The bottle can also pick up fingerprints and a thin film on the outside. Some people wipe it often. Others accept it as normal. With a bar at a sink, the routine includes the dish. If the dish drains well, the bar begins to dry. If the dish holds water, the underside of the bar stays wet. Over time, that wet underside can become soft and leave residue in the dish. People may rinse the dish every few days, or they may let residue build until it feels unpleasant. This depends on habits, and it is not always the same. With liquid soap, the routine includes the pump or cap. A pump bottle is convenient because it delivers a set dose without opening anything. But the pump head sits in open air, and soap can dry at the tip. A small crust can form. Wiping the nozzle or rinsing it with warm water can help, and drying it can slow the crusting. Still, some crusting can return because the tip is exposed. Child hand washing can change the pattern. A child may over wet hands, pump more than needed, or drop a bar more often. Soap can end up on the sink rim or inside the basin. This creates more mess and more residue, but it also creates a familiar household scene. The object is still the same, only the handling changes. Pre-bed hand washing can be slower. Some people rub longer and rinse more carefully. Overnight, ventilation can be reduced and the bathroom can stay more humid. A bar may be left wetter. A clear glycerin-rich bar may show more droplets by morning. This is not always the same, but it fits the idea of soap reacting to room conditions. Soap runs out in a quiet way. A bar becomes too small to hold comfortably. A pump begins to sputter and draw air. A refill might be under the sink, or a spare bar might be in a drawer. In some homes, a bottle gets topped off without rinsing. Topping off can slowly change the soap over time, and it can introduce contamination at the opening. This is not always the same, but it is a known habit. Small design details matter because they repeat. A pump that drips after use creates a sticky spot that needs wiping. A dish that is hard to rinse becomes something people avoid cleaning, and the residue then becomes normal. Sink soap is used in short loops, and small messes repeat until they become routine. Now we can move on. Chapter 7: Daily Routines in the Shower or Bath. Shower soap lives in a wetter world than sink soap. Water can hit surfaces even when the soap is not being held. A bar may sit on a ledge where water drips. If the bar stays wet between uses, it softens. It can become mushy and wear away faster. A rack that drains well can change the bar's life more than the formula does. Placement in a shower is often a compromise between reach and drainage. A bar that sits in a corner may be out of the main water stream, but it may also be in a place where water pools. A shelf may look convenient, but if it is flat and holds water, it can keep the bar wet and encourage residue on the shelf. Shower body cleansing with a bar often includes the bar moving between hand and shelf. The bar is rubbed, then set down, then picked up again. Over time the bar rounds and thins, and edges wear faster than flat faces. If the bar is dropped in the shower, it can pick up grit from the floor. If grit stays embedded, the bar can feel scratchy, and this may vary depending on what it touched. Body wash bottles add a different routine. The bottle gets wet on the outside and can develop a thin film. Caps and hinges can collect water and wear over time. Many people store the bottle upside down so the product is ready to dispense, and that changes where residue gathers. Ventilation and drying time matter in a shower. In a humid period, bars can stay tacky, and glycerin-rich bars can develop droplets on the surface. In a dry air period, bars can dry faster and last longer, but they can also crack if they dry unevenly. Liquid thickness can shift with temperature, and this may vary by formula. Shower soap can contribute to film on surfaces. True soap can react with hard water minerals and form deposits that create soap scum. Some formulas include ingredients that bind metals in the water and reduce scum, and a Sindit bar tends to form less scum in hard water. Still, results vary with water and with use patterns. Film can build on shower corners and ledges, and then a larger cleaning session removes it, and then it builds again. Shower routines are often slower than sink routines. Soap is rubbed over skin, then rinsed away. The object is set down again, and its next few hours are shaped by drip patterns, airflow, and the shelf. In the shower, soap is always managing water, contact, drainage, and drying. Now we can move on. Chapter 8: Household Roles: Personal, Shared, Guest, Utility. Soap often becomes several objects with different roles. One soap may be for a kitchen sink. Another may be for a bathroom sink. Another may be for a shower. Some homes also have a utility soap near a laundry sink. Each role changes how soap is stored, how it is judged, and how often it is replaced. Personal soap can feel like a boundary. A person may prefer a certain scent or a certain rinse feel. When soap feels personal, it may be kept on a separate dish, or in a personal spot, or carried as a small bottle or travel bar. Personal soap is often protected from standing water because the owner notices the change and wants it to last. Shared soap is often chosen for simplicity. A single bar in a shower or a single pump at a sink reduces clutter. Shared soap is used more often and may not have time to dry fully between uses. Shared soap also creates shared maintenance. If nobody rinses the dish, residue builds. If nobody wipes the pump head, crust forms. The object becomes a test of shared habits, in a quiet way. Guest soap is often about signaling. A fresh bar or a clean bottle can make a guest bathroom feel ready. Some households use small guest bars in paper wraps. Others use a regular bar that may sit unused for weeks, drying and hardening. Either way, guest soap tends to be seen as part of the room's order. Utility soap lives in practical spaces. A laundry or utility bar may be used for stain pre-treating. It can be stored near a utility sink and may pick up lint or dirt. Utility soaps can also leave film on sinks. They are often chosen for stronger soil removal, which can feel too harsh for some skin uses. This may vary because skin sensitivities differ. Roles also shape what happens at the end of a bar. Some people save slivers. Slivers tend to dissolve quickly unless they are held together. A mesh bag can hold small pieces and allow lather while keeping them from slipping away. Some people press small pieces together, making a layered bar that is slightly uneven but usable. These habits are simple and practical, and they depend on preference. Multiple soaps can create a drawer of extras. Partially used bars can drift from one room to another. A bar that was once in the shower may become a hand soap later. Over time, half-used items can sit in storage, waiting for someone to decide what to do with them. Soap often becomes several objects at once, because each room asks for a different routine. Now we can move on. Chapter 9: Small Problems People Accept as Normal. Many soap problems are small and repeatable. A dish collects residue. A bar gets soggy at the bottom. A pump head gets sticky. A bottle base gathers a dull ring. These issues can often be fixed quickly, but they get postponed because they do not feel urgent. A soggy bar often comes from standing water contact. The underside softens, and a soft layer can form. Later, the bar may slump and leave paste-like residue on the dish. Drainage helps. A dish with ridges or holes reduces standing water contact. Bathrooms also vary. Some are humid. Some have less airflow. Some bars contain more humectants. A high glycerin bar can soften and feel sticky in humidity. This is not always the same, but it is common enough to notice. Cracking is another calm problem. A bar can develop hairline cracks from uneven drying, or from stress points left by shaping and stamping. A crack can stay small for a while, then the bar can split into two pieces. This can be annoying, but it is often still usable. People may keep using the pieces, or they may replace the bar sooner. Soap film on surfaces is another background issue. In hard water, true soap can form deposits that become soap scum. That scum can dull a holder, a sink edge, or a shower ledge. Some people rinse the holder often. Others wipe it during a larger cleaning session. If the film is left alone, it becomes part of the normal look of the room. Pump crusting is a common problem with liquid soap. A small amount dries at the nozzle tip. At first it is only tacky. Later it can narrow the opening and cause sputtering. Wiping the nozzle weekly can help, and rinsing the tip with warm water can loosen dried soap. Still, the crust can return because the tip stays exposed. Liquid soap can also separate in storage or after temperature changes. A faint layer can appear, then a more obvious layering. Some people keep using it, and some people replace it if separation persists. This is not always the same, and it depends on the formula and how it is stored. Scent change is also common. Fragrance can fade over time, and warm rooms can speed the fade. A bar can also develop an off odor if fats oxidize over time, and this may show up as an unpleasant smell or discoloration. If the odor is unpleasant, many people replace it. Packaging creates its own small issues. Labels can peel after repeated wetting and drying. Caps can leak. Pump springs can weaken and return less smoothly. Refill pouches can leave sticky residue if the spout leaks. These are quiet failures. People often tolerate them until they become too annoying. A drop bar can pick up grit. The bar can feel scratchy. People may rinse it, scrape the surface, or tolerate it until it wears down. Soap is a soft object, and it takes on what it touches when wet. Soap creates small, repeatable inconveniences that most people quietly work around. Now we can move on. Chapter 10: A calm summary of what it is like to live with soap. Soap is an everyday object that repeats. It sits near water, it is used in small loops, and it slowly changes with time and use. Most of the time it is not thought about. It becomes noticeable only when it is missing, or messy, or unpleasant, or when it creates a repeated annoyance in a place that is used often. Drainage and placement are the quiet keys. A bar that can drain and dry between uses tends to stay firm and last longer. A bar that sits in standing water tends to soften and leave residue. A bottle that sits in splashes tends to gather film at the base, and a label can peel after repeated wetting and drying. A pump that dries at the nozzle tends to crust. These are predictable outcomes of water, air, and routine. Bar and liquid are also habit choices. A bar asks for a dish that can be rinsed, and a place where it can drain. It can chip at corners, crack through the center, and become too small to hold. A liquid asks for a container that works, a pump that returns smoothly, and a nozzle that stays clear. It can separate if stability is poor, and it can clog at the tip where product dries. Both forms can clean well, and the choice often comes down to what kind of mess a household prefers to manage, a bar and dish that need rinsing, or a bottle and pump that need wiping. Soap also gathers small cleaning routines around it. A person rinses a dish, wipes a tray, or wipes a ring under a bottle. A person wipes a pump nozzle and collar. A person removes film from a holder or a shower ledge. These routines can be frequent and small, or rare and larger. Either way, soap sits at the center of them, quietly. Replacement happens without planning. A bar becomes too small to hold comfortably. A bar stays sticky and never dries. A bar develops an unpleasant odor or has visible embedded dirt that will not rinse away. A liquid shows persistent separation, an odd odor, or a pump that no longer returns smoothly. Most replacements are driven by convenience. When the object becomes annoying, it is replaced. Soap is ordinary, and that is its main feature. It needs a place to sit. It needs a little water and a little rubbing. It needs a rinse. Then it needs to rest and dry as much as the room allows. The cycle repeats, steady and familiar, and that steady repetition is what makes soap such a quiet part of daily life. Soap is ordinary, it repeats, it sits near water, and it slowly changes with use. Chapter 11: The cleaning base in plain categories. Soap may look like a plain bar or a plain bottle, but inside it there is a main cleaning base. That base is the part that helps lift soils and lets them rinse away. In a calm way, consumer soaps can be grouped by what provides that cleaning action, and by what supports the feel and the stability. One common group is built from true soap salts. These are fatty acid salts made when fats or oils react with an alkali to form soap. People do not usually describe that chemistry at the sink. They just notice that the bar lathers, the hands slide, and then the rinse happens. True soap can feel familiar and simple. It can also interact with minerals in hard water. That interaction can create soap scum and surface film. In a home, that film can show up on a soap dish, on a shower holder, or on a sink edge. The exact amount can vary with the local water and with how often the area is rinsed. Another common group is built from synthetic surfactants. These are also cleaning ingredients, but they are not the same as true soap salts. A Sindit bar is a soap-like bar made with synthetic surfactants rather than true soap salts. A practical reason for this variant is hard water. Synthetic surfactants often perform better in hard water and can leave less scum. Some people also find this type can feel less drying. This is not always the same for every product, but it is a steady reason these bars exist. Even when the cleaning base is in the true soap family, the form can change. Sodium soaps are commonly used for bars. Potassium soaps are commonly used for liquids. You do not need to hold on to the names. The simple point is that one kind is easier to shape into a firm bar, and the other kind is easier to keep as a liquid that can be pumped. This is one reason a bar and a liquid can feel different even when the basic goal is the same. Water is also part of the structure, especially in liquids. A bar is built to shed water over time so it can sit out between uses and dry. A liquid is built to hold water without separating. That means a liquid has to be stable in a bottle for normal storage. Liquids also often need preservatives. Preservatives matter because liquids hold water and live in wet rooms, and they need to stay stable and usable. Then there is the feel layer. Many soaps include humectants such as glycerin. A humect attracts water. It can change slip, comfort, and the way a soap feels during rubbing and rinsing. It can also change storage behavior. In humid air, glycerin-rich soaps may show sweating, meaning small droplets appear on the surface. This may vary with the room and the formula. Other supporting ingredients help with film and with long-term stability. Chelators bind metal ions and can reduce scum and dull film. Thickeners and salts can change how a liquid flows and how it feels at the pump nozzle. Fragrance and colorants shape the sensory experience and need to stay stable over time. For liquids, preservatives and stability checks help prevent separation and odor changes. Finally, packaging is part of the usable object. A wrap or box keeps a bar clean before first use. A pump bottle sets the dose and reduces direct contact with product inside. Refills in pouches change how often bottles are replaced and how the sink area is maintained. In daily life, these packaging choices become part of what soap is. Soap formulas are mostly about the cleaning base plus the ingredients that control feel and stability. Now we can move on. Chapter 12: Hardness, Dissolving, and the Pace of Wear. A bar of soap lives a slow life of wetting and drying. Each use dissolves a thin layer, and each rest period lets the bar dry again. Over many repeats, that slow dissolving becomes the bar's lifespan. When people say a bar lasts a long time, they are usually describing a bar that resists dissolving between uses, and that can dry in a steady way. Hardness is one of the first things people notice. A harder bar feels firm and keeps its shape on the dish. A softer bar can feel more creamy, but it can also smear and leave more residue when it stays wet. Hardness can come from the fatty acid profile of the soap, and from how much moisture remains after making and drying. It can also relate to how long the bar cures. This is not always the same. Different formulas and different cure times can lead to different starting hardness. Solubility is another quiet driver. Some bars dissolve faster when water touches them. A faster dissolving bar can lather quickly and feel slippery right away. That can feel satisfying, but it can also mean the bar disappears faster. A bar that dissolves more slowly can last longer, but it may take more rubbing to build the first layer of lather. The user may describe this as slow lather, even though the bar is simply resisting dissolving. Wear rate is not only about how often people wash. It is also about what happens after the wash. If a bar stays wet for hours afterward, it can keep dissolving slowly even when nobody is touching it. If it drains and dries, it stops dissolving and becomes stable again. Two identical bars can behave very differently depending on the dish, the rack, and the room ventilation. This may vary from home to home, but the general pattern is steady. Humidity adds another calm layer. In humid air, a bar can stay tacky longer. Humectants such as glycerin attract water, and that can increase surface moisture. Some glycerin-rich soaps show sweating in humid conditions. It can look like tiny droplets on the surface. This is a storage behavior, and it is not always the same, because humidity and airflow change. Cracking can also appear over time. A bar that dries unevenly can develop stress in the solid. Small cracks can show up on the surface, or a bar can split later. Moisture differences during manufacturing can also influence later cracking. A crack is often just a drying stress outcome, not a dramatic failure. Users often notice small cues without meaning to. The edge shape changes as the bar wears. A bar can become rounded and smooth at corners. The sound of a bar set down can change as it gets softer. The glide during washing can feel different depending on hardness and moisture. These cues are the bar quietly showing how it is dissolving and drying. A bar's lifespan is mostly a story about water contact, drying, and controlled dissolving. Now we can move on. Chapter 13: Liquids, Thickness, Pumps, and Staying Uniform. Liquid soap has a calm set of demands. It must stay uniform in storage. It must flow through a pump or a cap. It must feel pleasant when rubbed with a little water. And it must rinse away without becoming stubborn residue. When these demands are met, a liquid soap feels simple. When they are not met, the bottle becomes a daily annoyance. One key idea is thickness, sometimes called viscosity. Thickness matters most at the pump nozzle and in the hand. If a liquid is too thin, it can run off hands before rubbing begins. That can feel wasteful and messy. If a liquid is too thick, it can cling to the nozzle and collect at the tip. That small bit can dry. Over time, dried product can build into crust at the opening, and that can narrow the path and change how it dispenses. The result can be sputtering, uneven flow, or a small drip that creates a sticky spot. The pump itself turns soap into a measured portion. This shapes habit. Many people settle into one pump, or two pumps, without thinking. The portion size is influenced by the pump chamber size and how the spring returns. The pump feel becomes part of the object. A smooth return feels calm. A sticky return feels irritating. The noise of the pump can also matter in a quiet way, especially in a bathroom at night when the house is still. Temperature can change thickness. In cooler conditions, a liquid can feel thicker and pump more slowly. In warmer conditions, it can feel thinner and may drip more easily. This is not always the same, and it depends on the formula and the container. Liquids also face the issue of separation. A stable liquid stays uniform, with the same look and the same feel from the first use to the last. When separation happens, the bottle may show layers or uneven appearance. Sometimes gentle mixing can change the look, and sometimes separation persists. If separation persists, many people decide to replace it, because the product no longer feels reliable. This may vary by formula and storage conditions. Foaming pumps add a different logic. A foaming soap is often a thinner liquid mixed with air by the pump to create foam. The foam spreads easily on hands. It can also change how much product seems to be used per wash. The portion can feel larger because of the air mixed in, even when the amount of liquid is smaller. This affects dose habits in a quiet way. Common failure points for liquids are usually simple. A cap can leak. A pump collar can loosen. A nozzle can clog where product dries. A bottle can tip if the base is narrow. Labels can wear in wet rooms and peel. These are small problems, but because they repeat, they become the user's memory of the product. In liquids, the pump and thickness quietly control the entire user experience. Now we can move on. Chapter 14: The manufacturing flow for bars, as a calm sequence. A bar of soap looks simple, but making it at scale is mostly a sequence designed to reduce variability. The goal is consistency. Each bar should weigh about the same, smell about the same, and wear in a similar way. The steps are practical, not decorative. They exist to control moisture, texture, and uniform mixing. It begins with ingredient selection and refining. The fats or oils chosen shape hardness and lather. Some soaps are tallow-based. Some are vegetable oil-based. The mix can include hyaluronic oils that boost lather and cleansing but can also increase solubility and wear rate. Some use olive oil in a Castile-style tradition, which can feel gentler to some people and can lather differently. These choices matter because the fatty acid profile affects hardness, lather type, and wear. Exact mixes are not always the same, and they depend on the product goals. Then comes the reaction step where fats or oils react with alkali to form soap. This reaction is called saponification. In simple terms, the goal is to manage the reaction so the result is consistent. Completeness can affect mildness and odor stability, and it can also affect bar hardness. Some formulas intentionally leave extra oils unreacted, sometimes called superfat. That extra oil can change feel and reduce tightness for some users. It can also raise the risk of rancid odor over time. This may vary with the oil choice and with storage. After the base is made, drying matters. Bar soap is dried to a workable moisture level. Moisture differences can show up later as cracking or uneven wear. Drying is about reaching a stable state for shaping, not about making the bar perfectly dry. Supporting ingredients such as fragrance and colorants can be mixed in next. Uniform mixing matters so bars do not have stronger scented pockets or streaky color. Uneven mixing can lead to cosmetic defects that users notice, like streaks, patches, or uneven scent. Mechanical steps help control texture and density. Milling is used to make the soap mass more uniform. It helps remove unevenness and helps the bar stamp cleanly later. Extrusion can follow, shaping the soap mass into a continuous form that can be cut into bar lengths. Then cutting and stamping create individual bars. Stamping sets the final shape and any mark on the surface. Curing time then helps the bar settle into a stable state, with more even moisture. Throughout this flow, small physical outcomes matter. A denser, smoother bar tends to chip less and feel more uniform. A warped bar can rock on a dish and trap water under it. A brittle bar can chip at edges. These outcomes are linked back to moisture control, mixing, and shaping steps. Bar soap is made to be consistent, and most steps exist to reduce variability. Now we can move on. Chapter 15: The manufacturing flow for liquids in a controlled blend. Liquid soap manufacturing is mainly controlled blending. The product must stay uniform in storage, flow through a pump, and still feel pleasant when rubbed with water. The work is steady and careful, because a small mistake can show up later as separation, odor change, or a pump problem. A liquid begins with creating or sourcing the liquid base. This base can be made from potassium soaps, synthetic surfactants, or a mix. Once the base is ready, dilution and blending are done with control. Mixing is usually managed to avoid excess air bubbles. Air bubbles can make a liquid look cloudy or foamy when it should not. They can also affect how filling behaves. This may vary by equipment and formula, but the goal is a smooth blend. Thickness is adjusted so it dispenses well. Thickeners and salts can change flow. The aim is a viscosity that does not run off hands too fast and does not cling and crust at the nozzle. Some products also aim for a certain clarity. A clear look can be seen as clean and simple, while an opaque look can be seen as rich. Either way, the look depends on how ingredients interact, and this can vary. Preservation and stability checks are part of the normal process. Liquids hold water, and they sit in wet rooms. Preservatives help keep the product stable during normal storage and use. Stability checks help ensure the liquid does not separate and does not develop an off odor in normal conditions. When stability is not good, problems show up later at the sink, and that is what quality checks try to prevent. Then comes filling. Filling and packaging are not afterthoughts. A good formula can still become a poor household object if the cap leaks or the pump fails. So filling is paired with leak testing and function checks. Bottles can be checked for seals. Pumps can be checked for smooth return and steady output. Some checks focus on whether the pump gives a consistent portion each time. Labels also have to survive a wet room. Soap bottles get splashed and handled with wet hands. Over time, water and rubbing can weaken labels. A label that peels makes a bottle look worn and can feel messy. This is why labeling choices and how the label holds on are part of the product's design, even though users rarely think about them. Finally, storage and shipping conditions matter. A bottle stored on its side can leak if the cap and pump are not secure. Refills stored under a sink are often meant to stay upright and sealed. Small leaks become sticky messes that spread across cabinet shelves. So packaging design and tests are part of preventing that slow annoyance. For liquids, stability and packaging function are as important as the cleaning base. Now we can move on. Chapter 16: Quality checks and the small defects that matter. Soap quality checks focus on predictable use. Soap is used in short loops, many times. Because of that, a small flaw becomes important when it repeats. Quality checks are meant to keep the object calm and reliable, so it stays in the background of daily life. One simple area is weight and net contents. Bars are checked so they meet their intended weight, within acceptable variation. Bottles are checked so they contain the intended amount. If a bar is lighter than expected, it runs out sooner. If a bottle is underfilled, it changes how long the soap lasts and can feel disappointing. Exact labeling rules and allowed variation can vary by place, and this is not always the same. Bars are also checked for physical defects. Cracks, warps, and surface issues are looked for because they change how the bar behaves at home. A cracked bar can split during use. A warped bar can rock on a dish and trap water underneath, increasing mess and wear. Surface inspection can also catch rough patches, chips, or uneven stamping. A stamp that is uneven can be only cosmetic, but it can also hint at uneven density or moisture. Liquids are checked for thickness, separation, and odor. Thickness affects pump behavior and user experience. Separation is a clear sign the blend is not stable. Odor checks help catch early signs of instability. Some products can develop rancid odor if oils oxidize over time, and some can develop off smells if storage is poor. When odor changes, users often replace the product sooner. Pump function is also checked. Output consistency matters because users build habits around a portion. If the pump output varies a lot, the routine feels unreliable. Leak tests are also key. A small leak at a cap or pump collar creates sticky residue at the base. That residue catches dust. It then becomes harder to clean. A small leak can turn into a larger maintenance habit. There are also cosmetic defects that matter because they shape perception. A liquid with visible bubbles can look odd, even if it works. A bar with streaks can look lower quality. Uneven color, uneven scent intensity, or a bar that feels gritty can all become reasons a user avoids the product. At the same time, some variation is normal. A bar can have a tiny surface mark and still work well. A bottle label can show wear and still function. What counts as acceptable variation is a practical decision aimed at preventing repeated annoyance rather than aiming for perfection. Soap quality checks are mostly about preventing small annoyances from becoming routine problems. Now we can move on. Chapter 17 Design details users notice through repetition. Soap design is felt through repetition. A single use does not tell the whole story. The real story is what happens over dozens of uses, in the same place, with the same hands and the same water. Small design choices become noticeable because they keep showing up. For bars, grip is a daily concern. Wet hands reduce grip. A bar that is too smooth can slip and be dropped. A bar with a shape that sits well in the palm can feel steadier. Edge comfort matters too. Sharp corners can feel uncomfortable and can chip. Rounded edges can feel gentle and can reduce chipping. The bar's shape also affects how it sits in a dish and how much water it traps underneath. Lather behavior is another design outcome users notice. Some soaps lather quickly, and the lather can feel light or creamy depending on the formula. Some soaps lather more slowly. Water conditions can change this, especially in hard water. A user may interpret lather speed as cleaning power, even though the connection is not always the same. What the user really experiences is how fast the hands get slip and how easily the product spreads. Rinse feel also matters. Some soaps rinse away with very little leftover feel. Others leave a sense of coating or softness. People describe this in different ways. Some like the squeaky clean feeling. Some prefer less squeak and more comfort. This is not always the same, and preferences vary. Scent intensity is a design choice, and scent change over time is part of the object's life. A bar can smell strong when fresh and fade as it sits. A liquid can also lose scent. Storage conditions and time can influence this. Odor stability matters as well. If a bar or liquid develops an off odor, users notice quickly and replace it. Residue is one of the most visible outcomes. True soap can form scum in hard water and leave film on holders. Chelators can reduce film by binding metal ions, but results vary. Users notice residue because it changes the look of the sink zone or shower shelf. A bar that leaves a messy dish forces more cleaning. A liquid that drips forces wiping. For liquids, pump feel is part of the design. The smoothness of the press and return matters. Noise matters. A pump that sticks or squeaks becomes a small daily irritation. A nozzle that drips leaves sticky lines. a nozzle that crusts can clog and cause sputtering. These are design outcomes that shape routine. Bottle stability and splash behavior are also noticed. A stable base prevents tipping. A bottle that tips creates spills and larger cleanup. Bottles near faucets get splashed, and labels that cannot handle wet rooms peel. These small details decide whether soap stays quiet in the background or becomes a repeated task. Soap design is mostly felt through small repeated interactions, not single dramatic moments. Now we can move on. Chapter 18: Variants compared in a calm way. Soap comes in variants because homes differ. Water differs. Storage differs. People also differ in what they find comfortable and low mess. Variants exist to fit these differences, and most of them are simple trade-offs. Traditional bars are common because they are simple to store and use. They do not need a pump. They can sit on a dish and wait. Their main challenge is water exposure. A bar needs drainage so it can dry between uses. When it can dry, it stays firmer and lasts longer. When it stays wet, it softens and leaves more residue. Syndet bars are different in their cleaning base. They are made with synthetic surfactants rather than true soap salts. A practical benefit is hard water performance. They often perform better in hard water and can leave less scum and film on surfaces. Some people also find the feel less drying. This can vary with the specific product and with personal preference. Glycerin soaps are noticed because glycerin affects transparency and feel. Glycerin is a humect. It attracts water. In humid air, glycerin-rich bars can show sweating, with small droplets on the surface. This storage behavior is not always the same, because humidity and airflow change. Castile-style soaps are a naming tradition often linked to olive oil. These soaps can feel gentler to some people, and they can lather differently. They may also cure longer. These differences matter mainly in everyday feel and in how people judge the bar in their own water conditions. Foaming soaps are a liquid variant shaped by the pump. A foaming pump mixes air with a thinner soap liquid to create foam. The foam spreads quickly and can feel light. It can also change how much soap seems to be used per wash. Because air is mixed in, the portion can look large even when less liquid is used. This changes dosing habits. Utility and laundry bars are often chosen for practical cleaning tasks. The goal may be stronger cleaning on fabrics or stains rather than a gentle skin feel. The way these bars feel on skin can vary, and it is not always the same. Travel formats solve one problem and create another. Small bars are easy to pack, but they must dry. If they are put away wet, they can soften and smear inside a container. Small bottles can travel, but they can leak if caps fail. Soap sheets are very light and packed neatly, but they must be protected from humidity. If humidity reaches them, they can clump. Travel soaps therefore need careful storage. Variants are not about one best soap. They are about fitting a soap to a setting. A hard water home may value less film. A small sink may value a stable bottle and a clean pump. A traveler may value a format that can be stored without leaks and without damp buildup. Soap variants are mostly trade-offs between convenience, mess control, and performance in local conditions. Now we can move on. Chapter 19: Packaging choices are part of the design. Packaging decisions are design decisions. Packaging decides dosing, storage, and mess. Soap lives in wet rooms, so packaging must also survive repeated splashes, wet hands, and drying cycles. When packaging works, the object feels simple. When packaging fails, it becomes a source of repeated cleanup. Bar packaging begins with wraps and boxes. These protect the bar before first use and reduce handling. A wrap keeps the bar clean and can slow moisture pickup during storage. A box adds structure for stacking and shipping. The exact barrier behavior can vary with material, and this is not always the same, but the practical goal is consistent: a clean bar at first touch. Once the bar is in use, the holder becomes part of the package story. A dish or rack is where the bar lives between uses. A holder that drains helps the bar last longer and reduces residue. A holder that traps water encourages softening and mess. This is why the holder feels like part of the product experience even when it is bought separately. For liquids, the bottle and pump are the package. Bottle shape affects stability near a faucet. A stable base prevents tipping on crowded sinks. Labels must survive wet room life. Water splashes, then dries. Hands touch the bottle. Soap residue runs down. If the label peels, the bottle looks worn early and can feel messy. The pump brings convenience and complexity. A pump sets the portion size and reduces direct contact with the product inside. But a pump has moving parts. A more complex pump can be more likely to fail. Springs can weaken. Nozzles can clog where soap dries. Collars can loosen and leak. A simple cap can be more reliable, but it asks the user to pour or squeeze and can be messier in a different way. Refills shift work between manufacturer and user. A refill pouch reduces bottle turnover, but it requires careful pouring and a clean opening. If the bottle opening is dirty, contamination is more likely. Concentrates reduce storage volume, but they depend on correct dilution. If dilution is not right, thickness and feel can change, and pumping can change. This can vary, and it is not always the same. Storage orientation is also part of packaging design. Some bottles are meant to stand upright. Some are stored upside down for easier dispensing. Refills are often meant to stay upright and sealed under a sink. These choices matter because small leaks create sticky messes that spread. A small leak turns into dust-catching residue, and then into a cleanup job. Drips also have a quiet cost. A nozzle that drips makes sticky spots. A cap that leaks makes rings under the bottle. Over time, these small issues shape whether the sink area feels calm or constantly in need of wiping. Soap packaging is part of soap because it decides dosing, storage, and mess. Now we can move on. Chapter 20: A calm bridge to care and slow endings. When you understand the materials, the making, and the packaging, the everyday wear of soap becomes easier to predict. A bar dissolves where water touches it, and it lasts longer when it can drain and dry. A liquid stays easy to use when its thickness fits its pump, and when it stays uniform in storage. Small changes in the home setting can change everything, and this may vary from one sink to another. Materials predict some common behaviors. True soap can form scum and film in hard water. Synthetic surfactants can reduce that film in many cases. Humectants such as glycerin can change feel and can attract moisture, leading to sweating in humid air. Extra oils left in a bar can change comfort but can also affect odor stability over time. These are not dramatic effects. They are slow, steady tendencies. Manufacturing predicts defect patterns. Moisture differences during bar making can show up later as cracking or warping. Uneven mixing can show up as streaks or uneven scent. Shaping steps influence how cleanly a bar stamps and how easily it chips. For liquids, pour stability can show up as separation. Packaging checks try to prevent leaks and pump failures, but when those checks fall short, the problems appear slowly in the home. Design predicts the cleaning routines around soap. A draining holder reduces residue and mess. A pump that does not drip reduces sticky spots. A stable bottle reduces tipping. A durable label reduces the feeling that the object is peeling apart in the wet room. soap becomes the center of a small zone, and that zone becomes part of daily maintenance. Soap failures are usually quiet. The object does not break in a sudden way. It becomes inconvenient. A bar becomes too small to hold. A bar stays soft and smears. A dish gets coated in residue. A pump becomes stiff, clogged, or leaky. A bottle base becomes sticky. A scent fades, or an odor changes. These are slow changes that build until the household decides it is time to replace the item. Replacement is normal. A spare bar might wait under the sink. A refill pouch might sit upright in storage. The swap is often simple. The old item leaves the wet zone, and a new one takes its place. Then the same small routines begin again, wetting, lathering, rinsing, and setting the object down to dry. From here, the story stays very simple. It becomes about placement, drying, wiping, and the slow build-up of film on holders. It becomes about the small habits that keep soap usable, and the quiet decisions people make when the object is no longer pleasant to use. Soap wears out slowly, and its care routine is mainly about preventing small repeated problems. Chapter 21 Care begins with placement and drying. Care for soap begins with where it rests. Soap is made to be used with water, but it does best when it is allowed to dry between uses. That one idea explains many small soap problems. When a bar stays wet for a long time, it softens and leaves more residue. When a bottle sits in pooled water, it gathers a ring at the base and can look tired even when it still works. For bars, drainage is the quiet main task. A draining soap dish or a rack lets water run away from the bar, so the bar can dry on more than one side. Some dishes use ridges. Some use holes. Some lift the bar slightly. The goal is the same, to reduce standing water contact. If water is not trapped under the bar, the underside stays firmer. The bar keeps its shape longer, and the dish stays cleaner. The material of the dish also matters in a simple way. Some holders rinse clean more easily than others. A holder that does not soak up water is often easier to rinse clean, and it is less likely to stain from colorants and wet contact. A holder that holds onto moisture can keep the bar wet longer, and this may vary with the holder and the room. In the shower, racks and airflow matter even more. A bar in a shower is exposed to water even when it is not being used. Drips and spray can keep it wet. A rack that drains well and has some airflow around it can change a bar's lifespan more than the formula does. A flat ledge that holds water can turn a bar into a softer, messier object. For liquids, placement matters too. A bottle that sits in a puddle collects residue around its base and label. Over time, the base can develop a dull ring, and the label can start to peel from repeated wetting and drying. A simple tray can help. A tray can catch drips and be wiped. A bottle can also be moved slightly away from the faucet splash zone, and that small shift can reduce daily water marks. Wiping habits are also part of placement. If a pump nozzle is wiped now and then, crust has less chance to form. If the sink edge around the dish is wiped, film has less chance to become a permanent background layer. These actions are small, but they keep soap and its surroundings calm. If you think of the bar as something that wants a short rest, the choices become simple. After use, it wants a place where water can run away. It wants a little air. It does not need special treatment, only a clear path to dry. When the path is clear, the bar stays firm. When the path is blocked by pooled water, the bar becomes soft and makes more residue. Some people also notice this with travel containers. A travel tin can keep a bar contained, but if the bar goes in wet and the tin stays closed, the bar stays damp. Travel tins work best when they are open to let the bar dry after use. This may vary with the setting, but the idea is the same. Soap does better with a short drying period. The central rule is not to keep soap dry all the time. The central rule is to let it drain and dry between uses. That is the care that fits soap best. The simplest care rule is consistent: let soap drain and dry between uses. Now we can move on. Chapter 22: Cleaning soap surroundings. Soap rarely needs to be cleaned directly, but its surroundings do. Soap dissolves a little each time it is used, and some of the dissolved part stays behind. It settles on the dish, on the rack, on the sink edge, and on the shower ledge. Over time, that small leftover builds into a film. For a bar, the soap dish is the main collection point. A dish collects the softened residue that does not leave with the user. That residue can also hold on to scent and small bits of dirt. When the dish is rinsed, the bar rests on a cleaner surface the next time. When the dish is never rinsed, the bar sits on old residue, and the residue keeps building. Some holders stain more easily than others. Staining on a porous holder can come from colorants and wet contact. Switching to a holder that does not soak up water can reduce staining, and rinsing more often can also help. This is not always the same, but it is a common pattern. Rinsing the dish keeps the bar cleaner and keeps the dish from developing odor retention. A simple routine is to rinse the dish every few days, and wipe off softened residue before it hardens. This does not have to be a deep clean. It can be a quick rinse with warm water, then a quick wipe, then the dish goes back and the bar goes back on top. Racks and caddies also need attention. A rack can collect a thin layer on its bars and corners. A quick rinse can remove it before it thickens. If film is allowed to build, it can become harder to remove and can dull the look of the holder. Sink edges can also collect film, especially in hard water areas where residue and minerals interact. The film can look grey or dull. It can reduce slip on the bar surface and change how the bar feels. Warm water and a mild cleaner can help. The key is not to attack the surface, but to repeat gentle cleaning so build-up does not become thick. In the shower, the slow build-up pattern is very familiar. A ledge or corner stays wet often. Soap sits there. Water drips there. Over time, a visible layer can form. The layer can be more visible on dark or glossy surfaces. It can make the surface feel slick. The simplest response is a rinse and wipe routine. If it is done in small regular moments, it is easier than a rare deep clean after a long build-up. Liquid bottles create their own small messes. The base of a bottle can gather a ring of residue where splash water dries. A slow drip from a nozzle can leave a sticky line. Sticky lines catch dust. Dust sticks to soap. Then the bottle looks dirty even if it is only a small drip. Wiping the bottle base and wiping the tray under it keeps the area calmer. Pump nozzles deserve a small routine too. If the nozzle is wiped weekly, less soap dries at the tip. If crust forms, rinsing the nozzle tip with warm water can loosen it. Then drying the tip reduces how fast crust returns. A tightly closed cap also reduces crusting at the opening for soaps that use caps. There are two styles of cleaning. One is small regular cleaning. The other is rare deep cleaning. With soap, small regular cleaning usually feels easier because the messes are small and repeat often. Most soap maintenance is actually cleaning the holder, the tray, and the nearby surfaces. Now we can move on. Chapter 23: What degrades soap fastest? Soap degrades fastest when its environment is careless. This is not meant as blame. It is just a practical way to say that soap responds to water, air, and handling. When those things are managed, soap stays stable longer. When those things are chaotic, soap changes faster. For bar soap, standing water contact is the fastest route to mushiness. If a bar sits in a flat dish with pooled water, the underside stays soft. A soft base can turn into a sloughing layer that smears on the dish. The bar then feels less stable in the hand. It can also wear unevenly because one side is dissolving more than the other. This is not always the same for every bar, but standing water contact is a strong driver. What people commonly do can explain why the change feels sudden. A bar may be left on a flat dish with pooled water. It may be pushed into a corner of the tub where water collects. The dish may never be rinsed. These habits are easy to fall into because soap problems are not urgent. But the result is predictable: the bar stays wet, and it breaks down faster. High humidity can also speed changes, especially for humect-rich bars. Humectants attract moisture from air. Some clear bars can show beads of moisture on the surface in humid air. This can create a sticky feel. The bar still cleans, but it can feel messy and can stick to a dish. Better airflow and a drier resting spot can help, and this may vary with the bathroom. Heat and sunlight can affect scent and color stability. Fragrance materials can fade faster in warm, ventilated rooms. Light and air exposure can also change color over time. A bar may still work while the scent fades and the color shifts. These are slow changes that happen while the bar sits in the open. Liquids are affected by temperature changes too. Frequent temperature swings can stress stability. A liquid can show a faint layer after cycling between warmer and cooler conditions. Sometimes gentle mixing restores the uniform look. Sometimes it does not, and the layering persists. Storage at a more stable temperature can help, and this may vary by product. Caps left open, or not fully closed, also speed problems for liquids. A cap left ajar allows evaporation at the opening. That can lead to crusting at the nozzle or around the cap. A tightly closed cap reduces crusting at the opening, and it also helps reduce changes in thickness over time. Contamination from dirty handling is another quiet stressor. When a bottle is opened and dirty hands touch the opening, the product near the opening can change over time. Repeated topping off without rinsing can also slowly change stability and odor over time. It can be convenient, but it can also lead to a bottle that feels older faster than expected. Soap lasts longest when water exposure is controlled and containers are kept clean and closed. Now we can move on. Chapter 24: Wear modes in bars from new to sliver. A bar of soap has a simple life cycle. It starts new, firm, and easy to hold. Over time it rounds and thins. Later it becomes a sliver that is hard to hold. Then it is either adapted or replaced. This life cycle is gradual, and that is part of why bars feel so ordinary. In early use, a new bar often shows stamping edges and clean corners. Some bars are designed with a bevel to reduce chipping. Still, corners often wear faster than flat faces. The bar touches the dish at edges and corners. It rubs against hands at edges. So the first visible change is rounding. The rounding is not only from rubbing. It is also from the bar sitting on its dish. Edges touch first. Water sits at the edges. That is why the edges often wear faster than the flat faces. Over time the bar becomes more comfortable in the hand, but it also becomes more slippery if it is very smooth. The stamp can become softer. The edges become smooth. In midlife, a bar often feels stable and predictable. Grip is easier because the bar has a shape that fits the hand. Lather becomes predictable because the bar surface wets easily. For many people this is the most pleasant part of the bar's life. The object is neither too large nor too small, and it sits well on its holder. Late life begins when the bar becomes thin. Thin bars can be hard to hold with wet hands. They slip. They can break. They also tend to dissolve quickly. soap slivers tend to dissolve quickly unless held in a mesh bag. This may vary. A mesh bag holds small pieces together and still allows lather. Some people press slivers onto a fresh bar, creating a layered object that is slightly uneven but usable. Cracks and chips can appear at any stage, but they become more noticeable later. Cracking through the center can come from uneven drying or stamping stress. It can begin as hairline cracks, then become split halves. Storing the bar in a drier place and avoiding sudden heat exposure can reduce cracking, and this may vary. Edge chipping can come from sharp corners and drops. Small chips can lead to a crumbly feel. Rounded bars and gentler handling can reduce this, and this may vary. Drop events can change a bar. A bar dropped on a dirty surface can pick up small particles. Even a tiny bit can change the feel. The bar might look fine, but the surface can feel rough when rubbed on skin. Some people rinse and keep using it. Some shave off the outer layer. And some decide it is not worth it. These choices are ordinary, and they depend on how much grit is there and how sensitive the user is to a scratchy feel. This may vary. Embedded grit can make the bar feel scratchy. Rinsing after drops and keeping the holder clean can help reduce grit issues. If grit remains and the feel is unpleasant, some people replace the bar. A bar's life is gradual. It rounds, it thins, it becomes a sliver, and then it is replaced. Now we can move on. Chapter 25: Wear modes in liquids, pumps, clogs, and separation. Liquid soap often wears out through dispensing. The liquid itself may still clean, but the pump and the opening are where small failures show up. Because liquid soap is used in quick loops, a small dispensing problem can become a daily annoyance. Nozzle crusting is one of the most common early issues. A small amount of soap dries at the opening. The next dose catches on that dried bit. Over time, the crust grows. The stream can become slow. The pump can sputter. Sometimes the output becomes a small sideways spray that lands on the sink edge or on the bottle. That creates more wiping later. Over time, the user starts to expect the mess, and the object becomes less calm to live with. This is usually not dramatic. It is just a gradual change from clean flow to annoying flow. A simple response is a small routine. Wiping the nozzle reduces dry buildup. If crust forms, rinsing the nozzle tip with warm water can loosen it, and drying the tip can slow the return of crust. Keeping a cap tightly closed, when a cap exists, also reduces crusting at the opening. Pump spring fatigue is another slow wear mode. The spring inside a pump is used many times. Over time it can weaken. The pump return can become slower. The pump can fail to return fully. This can make the dose inconsistent. One press might give a full portion, and the next might give very little. A user then presses again, and that changes habits and mess. The dose per stroke is partly set by the chamber inside the pump head. That chamber size shapes the routine. When the return becomes weak, the dose can change. The user then adds extra presses, and drips and residue can increase. Drips and sticky collars can also appear. A nozzle that drips after pumping leaves a sticky line. That line catches dust. The collar around the pump can collect residue from drips and from splash water. Wiping the collar keeps it from becoming a crusty ring. Separation is a different kind of wear mode. It is often visible and slow. A faint layer can appear after temperature changes. It can become more obvious over time. Sometimes gentle mixing restores uniformity. Sometimes it does not. If shaking does not restore the uniform look, the item becomes less pleasant to use and is typically replaced. This may vary by product and storage. Season and storage can also change thickness. Liquids can become thinner with heat or with over-dilution. When a liquid becomes runny, it can pour too fast and waste product. Keeping the cap closed and avoiding casual dilution can help keep thickness stable. Leaks can happen in caps and refill spouts. There are also rare cases where the bottle itself develops small cracks from stress over time. Hairline cracks can lead to leakage. If a bottle is leaking, replacement needs to happen right away, because leaks create sticky mess and can spread under the sink. This may vary, but leakage is one situation where it is better not to wait. A cap that does not seal can leave damp shelves under a sink. A refill pouch spout can leak at threads or from damage. The early sign is a damp spot. The later sign is sticky residue. Upright storage and cap checks reduce this, and replacing a pouch that keeps leaking can prevent ongoing mess. Liquid soap tends to fail through small dispensing problems and slow stability changes. Now we can move on. Chapter 26: Smell, Color and Film Issues Without Drama. Soap changes in smell, color, and residue are often slow. They do not mean the soap has suddenly become unsafe. They usually mean time and environment are doing what they do. A calm way to handle these changes is to notice them, adjust small habits if needed, and replace the soap if it has become unpleasant. Fragrance fading is normal. Fragrance materials evaporate slowly. In a warm bathroom with airflow, the fade can happen faster. A bar may still clean normally while smelling less like it did at first. A bottle may also lose scent over time, especially if it is stored in warm conditions. If scent is important to the user, they may replace soap sooner. If scent is not important, the soap may be used to the end. Off odors can come from oxidation of fats, or from contamination. Oxidation can create a stale smell and sometimes discoloration spots. Contamination can also change odor over time, especially when bottles are repeatedly topped off or handled with dirty hands at the opening. Storing soaps cooler and drier can reduce odor changes. Still, if the odor becomes unpleasant, many people choose to replace the soap. Color changes can happen from light and air exposure. Dyes can also bleed. Color bleeding can create faint colored water and stains on a dish. If staining is a problem, switching to a non-absorbing dish and rinsing more often can reduce it. Some staining can be unacceptable to a user even if the soap still works, and in that case replacement is a normal choice. Film is another category of change. Film can also show up on the bar itself as a dull layer, especially in hard water. A dull film can reduce slip and can make the bar feel less pleasant. Rinsing the dish, and rinsing the bar surface briefly, can reduce this. Some formulas include ingredients that bind bits in the water and reduce this kind of buildup, and this may vary. Film can appear on skin, and film can appear on surfaces. Film on skin is often described as a residue feel after rinsing. Some people dislike it. Others do not mind. Film on surfaces is more visible. Hard water can reduce the lather of true soap and increase surface film. This can show up as soap scum on holders, sink edges, and shower corners. It can be more visible on dark or glossy surfaces. Simple habits often help. Rinsing the dish, wiping the sink edge, and allowing bars to dry reduce the amount of residue that stays behind. Some formulas include ingredients that reduce hard water film, and this may vary. Switching the holder can help too. A dish with ridges or holes reduces standing water contact, which reduces mushiness and residue buildup. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a routine that keeps the soap usable and keeps the surroundings manageable. Most smell, color, and film changes are slow and manageable with simple habits. Now we can move on. Chapter 27: Replacement Decisions That Feel Ordinary. Most soap replacement is about convenience. It is not usually about alarms. Soap is replaced when it becomes annoying, or when it becomes messy, or when it feels unpleasant. These are ordinary decisions that happen in ordinary rooms. For bars, the most common reason is simple: too small to hold. A bar becomes thin. It slips. It breaks. It becomes a sliver that disappears quickly. At that point, some people adapt with a mesh bag. Some press the sliver onto a fresh bar. And some discard it because it has become fiddly. All of these choices are normal. Another reason for replacement is persistent mushiness. If a bar stays sticky and never dries, even when the dish is improved, it can feel like a constant mess. A user may decide that it is not worth the effort. Persistent cracks that split a bar can also push a replacement decision. A bar that splits into halves can still be used, but it can also become annoying to manage on a dish. Unpleasant odor is another common replacement trigger. If a bar develops a stale or rancid smell, or if a liquid develops an odd odor, users often replace it. Scent fade alone is not a replacement need, but an unpleasant change is. Visible embedded dirt that will not rinse away can also end a bar early. A bar dropped on a dirty floor can become gritty. If rinsing does not remove the grit, the scratchy feel can make the bar unpleasant. At that point, replacement feels like the simplest option. For liquids, persistent separation is a common reason to replace. If layering appears and does not go away, the product feels unreliable. Pump problems are also a big reason. A pump that no longer returns smoothly, repeated clogging that keeps coming back, or a bottle that leaks all turn a quick wash into a small task. Many households reduce replacement stress by keeping a backup. Backups also make it easier to avoid the half-used pile. When a new bar arrives, an older bar may still be sitting in a drawer. If older bars are finished first, the drawer stays smaller. If older bars are forgotten, the drawer becomes a place where scent fades and bars slowly harden over months. A bar left unused for months can become harder as water slowly evaporates. This is not always a problem, but it can change how the first uses feel. A spare bar in a drawer, or a refill under the sink, prevents the sudden moment of running out. It also reduces rush topping off of bottles, which can slowly change stability and odor over time. Some households also rotate soaps, finishing older ones first, so half-used bars do not build into a drawer of extras. Replacement is usually not dramatic. It is a quiet swap. The old object leaves the wet zone, and the new one takes its place. Soap replacement is usually a convenience choice. When it becomes annoying, it gets replaced. Now we can move on. Chapter 28: End of life, using it up and letting it go. Soap ends quietly. A bar is often used up until very little remains. A liquid bottle is used until the pump draws air. Then there is a small final question of what to do with what remains and with what is left behind. For bars, the cleanest end is often simply used up. Bars naturally disappear into use. What remains is usually a small sliver. Slivers can be managed in simple ways. A mesh bag can hold slivers together and make them easier to use. Small pieces can also be pressed together, forming a layered bar that is slightly uneven but usable. Some people also dissolve small remnants in water for cleaning tasks. And some people decide the last bits are not worth saving, and they discard them as regular waste. For liquids, the container remains. Some people rinse and reuse the bottle by refilling it if the pump still works smoothly. This reuse can reduce the number of bottles needed over time. Others discard the bottle when the pump fails, because the pump mechanism is the part that often wears out fastest. Where possible, some people separate bottles from pumps. A rigid bottle may have better chances for recycling in places that accept it, while pumps often contain mixed materials and springs, and recycling is inconsistent. This varies by local systems, and this may vary. Refill pouches change the waste pattern. Refill pouches trade rigid stability for lighter packaging. They can be easier to store in small spaces, but they can also be harder to keep stable if the spout leaks. Keeping them upright and checking caps helps reduce slow leaks. This may vary, but storage habits matter more with pouches. Refills reduce rigid bottle turnover, but flexible pouches can be harder to recycle in many systems. This is not always the same everywhere. Paper wraps and boxes can often be recycled if they are clean and dry. Rigid plastics may have better odds than mixed pumps, and rinsing helps reduce residue contamination. Residual product can make disposal messier. Small amounts left in a bottle or pouch can leak and can also make recycling harder. Wiping or rinsing can reduce residue. A little attention at the end can prevent sticky mess in bins and storage. The goal is to keep disposal claims calm and general. In many homes, soap ends in the simplest way. It is used up, and the leftover container is either reused or discarded when it stops working. Soap ends quietly, bars are used up, and liquid containers are either reused or discarded when they stop working. Now we can move on. Chapter 29: A gentle catalogue of failures and preventions. Many soap problems have simple preventions. The object is ordinary, and the solutions are ordinary too. The goal is not to eliminate every issue. The goal is to reduce repeated annoyances so the soap stays easy to use. When a bar becomes mushy, better drainage is usually the first answer. A dish with ridges or holes reduces standing water contact. A rack that lifts the bar lets air reach more sides. If a bar collapses into paste, that is a sign the bar has been kept too wet for too long. At that point, replacement can be the calmer choice. When a bar cracks, more even drying can help reduce the stress. A bar can also chip at the edges. Edge chipping often comes from sharp corners and drops. Small chips can become crumbs that feel unpleasant on a dish. Choosing a bar with more rounded edges and handling it gently when hands are very wet can reduce this. This may vary because some bars are more brittle than others. Uneven drying can come from a bar staying wet on one side and dry on the other. It can also come from sudden heat exposure. A calmer drying environment and avoiding heat blasts can help, and this may vary. Still, some cracking can be a normal outcome over time. Replacement often happens when fragments become annoying in use. When grit becomes embedded, rinsing after drops is the first step. Keeping holders clean reduces the chance of grit sticking in the first place. If grit remains and the bar feels scratchy, replacement is an ordinary solution. When pump nozzles clog, wiping and rinsing the nozzle tip can help. A brief warm water rinse can loosen crust. Drying the tip can slow the return of crust. Keeping caps closed also reduces crusting where product dries at openings. If a pump keeps clogging, replacing the pump or bottle can restore the simple routine. Many soap problems have simple preventions. The object is ordinary, and the solutions are ordinary too. The goal is not to eliminate every issue. The goal is to reduce repeated annoyances so the soap stays easy to use. When a bar becomes mushy, better drainage is usually the first answer. A dish with ridges or holes reduces standing water contact. A rack that lifts the bar lets air reach more sides. If a bar collapses into paste, that is a sign the bar has been kept too wet for too long. At that point, replacement can be the calmer choice. When a bar cracks, more even drying can help reduce the stress. A bar can also chip at the edges. Edge chipping often comes from sharp corners and drops. Small chips can become crumbs that feel unpleasant on a dish. Choosing a bar with more rounded edges and handling it gently when hands are very wet can reduce this. This may vary because some bars are more brittle than others. Uneven drying can come from a bar staying wet on one side and dry on the other. It can also come from sudden heat exposure. A calmer drying environment and avoiding heat blasts can help, and this may vary. Still, some cracking can be a normal outcome over time. Replacement often happens when fragments become annoying in use. When grit becomes embedded, rinsing after drops is the first step. Keeping holders clean reduces the chance of grit sticking in the first place. If grit remains and the bar feels scratchy, replacement is an ordinary solution. When pump nozzles clog, wiping and rinsing the nozzle tip can help. A brief warm water rinse can loosen crust. Drying the tip can slow the return of crust. Keeping caps closed also reduces crusting where product dries at openings. If a pump keeps clogging, replacing the pump or bottle can restore the simple routine. When liquids separate, stable storage temperature can help reduce layering. Frequent temperature swings can stress stability. If the liquid is also becoming thinner and runnier, it can be a sign of heat exposure or casual dilution. A runny soap can waste product and can make the sink area messier. Keeping caps closed and avoiding adding extra water helps keep the thickness closer to what it was meant to be. If a faint layer appears, it may or may not return to uniform with gentle mixing, and this may vary. If separation persists, replacement is common because the product becomes less pleasant to use. When leaks appear, upright storage and cap checks reduce ongoing mess. Refills stored upright are less likely to slowly leak. A damp shelf is an early sign. Sticky residue is a later sign. If a cap or spout continues to leak, replacing it prevents repeated cleanup. Some failures are simply end of life. A pump spring weakens. A bar becomes too thin to hold. Prevention reduces frequency, but it does not eliminate normal replacement cycles. Soap is designed for use, not for permanent life. Soap problems are usually small and predictable, and most have simple preventions. Now we can move on. Chapter 30 Mild Trivia as a slow closing. A few mild details can explain familiar soap routines. Soap dishes are shaped the way they are for drainage. A dish with ridges or holes reduces standing water contact. That simple shape choice affects mushiness, residue, and how often the dish needs rinsing. A dish that rinses clean easily makes the whole sink zone feel calmer. Foaming pumps also have a practical reason. A foaming pump usually needs a thinner liquid so it can mix air and create foam. If the product were too thick, it would not foam well. This is why foaming soaps often feel lighter and spread quickly. Clear bars often show humidity effects. Some clear bars sweat because humectants attract moisture from air. In a closed bathroom after a shower, humidity can rise, and small droplets can appear on the bar surface. This is not a mystery. It is just moisture moving from air to the bar. Hard water changes residue patterns. Hard water can reduce the lather of true soap and increase surface film. The film can be more visible on dark or glossy surfaces. It can build on sink edges, shower ledges, and dishes. Small rinsing and wiping habits keep it from becoming thick. The same idea explains why some bars feel draggy. A draggy feel can come from hard water residue, or it can come from a formula with less of the moisture-holding ingredients. This may vary. Either way, the user experiences it as less slip during washing and a different rinse feel. Labels peel in bathrooms for a plain reason. Labels fail mainly from repeated wetting and drying cycles. Bottles are touched with wet hands. Water splashes, then dries. Over time, the edges of labels can curl. Wiping bottles and keeping them out of puddles can reduce this, but some wear is simply normal. Soap is a simple object that repeats. It sits near water. It slowly changes. It is replaced. The routine stays stable. Wet hands, a small amount of soap, rubbing, lather, rinse, and then setting the object down to dry. Soap stays ordinary. It repeats the same small cycle, day after day,